If you're like me and you follow Joe Rogan in his podcast, you would know that by now, Elon Musk being on it is not a novelty. Elon pops in every 2 to 3 months. They talk about occupying Mars, meeting aliens, smoking weed, driving Teslas, etc. It's usually pretty chill. However, during his latest appearance, Elon had another approach. He wanted to shed some light and show the people what's happening behind the scenes, especially with his Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE.
Right.
So, the reality is that our elected officials have very little power relative to the bureaucracy until DOGE. So DOGE is a threat to the bureaucracy. It's the first threat to the bureaucracy. Normally the bureaucracy eats revolutions for breakfast. This is the first time that they're not, that the revolution might actually succeed, that we could restore power to the people instead of power to the bureaucracy.
Now, the size of it
Yeah.
was when you guys first started investigating it, when you first get in, how much of it was shocking? Like this, just the size of it all.
Well, the size of it all, the small decisions result in multi-billion-dollar outcomes. So, we'd see, it was a case where we saw one person was getting $1.9 billion sent to their NGO, which basically got formed about a year ago and had no prior, no prior activity. So they just stand up an NGO. The whole NGO thing is a nightmare. And it's a misnomer, because if you have a government-funded, non-governmental organization, you're simply a government-funded organization. It's an oxymoron.
Right. It's a loophole.
Yes. It basically, the government-funded NGOs are a way to do things that would be illegal if they were the government, but are somehow made legal if it's sent to a so-called nonprofit. But these nonprofits are then used to, people cash out these nonprofits. They become very wealthy through nonprofits. They pay themselves enormous sums through these nonprofits.
It's so insane that that's been going on for so long.
It's a gigantic scam, like one of the biggest, maybe the biggest scam ever. And if people want to know what DOGE is cutting, and I want to be clear, like these are cuts that DOGE recommends to the department, and usually these recommendations are followed, but these are recommendations that are then confirmed by the department. You can see line by line what DOGE has done at doge.gov. So whatever we do, we put on doge.gov so you can see everything that is being done.
And there's a tracker that shows
Yeah.
How much money has been saved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can look at each line item, and like a bunch of these sort of far left shows will say like, oh, it's a constitutional crisis, blah, blah, blah. But what they won't do is point out which payments are wrong.
Right.
So my challenge to them is point out which payments are wrong.
Yeah. Go through it.
Which of these sort of waste/fraud things are wrong? Which line? Explain that line to the public. They won't
Right.
be able to.
Right. Yeah, that's why you're not hearing any specifics. You're
That's
hearing
why no
anecdotal
specifics.
stories about mothers
But
starving.
we can name the specifics
Yeah.
line by line.
And,
We got the receipts.
And here's the other thing. If
like the Associated Press, which I call Associated Propaganda, the AP, they ran a international news story saying that DOGE fired air traffic controllers, but we didn't fire any air traffic controllers at all. In fact, we're trying to hire air traffic controllers, not fire them.
Yeah, I saw that. You made a tweet about it, right?
Yeah.
What do you call it now? Do you call it a post?
Post, yeah, whatever.
You can't call it a tweet, though. Do you call it a tweet
No,
accidentally
call it
ever?
post. I don't know. Listen to but like if one, like let's say if somebody puts up like an 2-hour long video, that's not a tweet.
Right. It's a post.
It's yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
Yeah. So, but I'm not hard over if people still want to call it a tweet, whatever.
But you put a post about it, just to get back to it, saying that we need highly qualified air traffic controllers.
The main payments computer is called PAM, like payment accounts master database or something like that. But everyone calls it PAM. That's responsible for almost $5 trillion of payments a year, roughly $1 billion an hour. And when we came there, we're looking at this PAM, and it's like the payments have no. you could put a payment through with no payment categorization code and no description on the payment, like basically untraceable blank checks. This is the kind of thing that if it was done as a public company, the company would be immediately delisted and the executive team would be thrown in prison. But this is just normal at the government. So we said, okay, our recommendation to the Treasury and the Federal Reserve was like, we need to make the payment categorization codes mandatory, not optional, and there needs to be an explanation. We're not judging the quality of the explanation, but there should be some explanation for what this payment is for above nothing. That's a radical change to the system that is being implemented now. My guess is that probably saves $100 billion a year.
He even talked about the government ripping us off, using our taxes for bullshit reasons, basically stealing from us, and using NGOs as facade to actually get money in their own pockets. Honestly, it's not surprising. We're talking about politicians here. 99.9% of them are crooked. But hearing someone actually say that out loud after doing due diligence and being on the other side of the fence, honestly, it's kind of a relief. It's like a bittersweet moment. Listen.
But this is just normal at the government. So we said, okay, our recommendation to the Treasury and the Federal Reserve was like, we need to make the payment categorization codes mandatory, not optional, and there needs to be an explanation. We're not judging the quality of the explanation, but there should be some explanation for what this payment is for above nothing. That's a radical change to the system that is being implemented now. My guess is that probably saves $100 billion a year.
Jesus Christ.
That's
where was that money going?
Rough order of magnitude.
Where was that money going?
Well, so this is where you get into the sort of gray boundary between waste and fraud. If money is sent to a person or organization from the government, and you didn't really deserve it, but the government still sent it to you, is that waste or fraud?
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of payments that where someone just approved the payment, but then that payment officer changed jobs or retired or died, and the payments just keep going. You know, it's like if you forget to pay your gym membership or something like that.
Right.
Now imagine it's not the gym membership. You said your gym membership's $20 billion a year or something, you know. But they forgot to turn it off. That's happening at scale in the government.
Jesus
It's totally
Christ,
nuts, is what I'm saying.
So insane.
Yes, it's totally insane. So
what did you expect when you went in? Did you
I
expect
thought
it would be
bad.
like this?
I thought it would be bad, but I did not think it would be as bad as this. I mean, look, the good news is that it's a target-rich environment for saving money. The main payments computer is called PAM, like payment accounts master database or something like that, but everyone calls it PAM. That's responsible for almost $5 trillion of payments a year, roughly $1 billion an hour. And when we came there, we're looking at this PAM, and it's like the payments have no. You could put a payment through with no payment categorization code, and no description on the payment, like basically untraceable blank checks. This is the kind of thing that if it was done as a public company, the company would be immediately delisted and the executive team would be thrown in prison. But this is just normal at the government. So we said, okay, our recommendation to the Treasury and the Federal Reserve was like, we need to make the payment categorization codes mandatory, not optional, and there needs to be an explanation. We're not judging the quality of the explanation, but there should be some explanation for what this payment is for above nothing. That's a radical change to the system that is being implemented now. My guess is that probably saves $100 billion a year. It's mostly just ridiculous things happening.
Because they've been able to do it this way for so long. They've become accustomed to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Milton Friedman said, like, money is most poorly spent when you're spending someone else's money on people you don't know. How much are you going to care?
Right.
And that's the federal government. So they're spending someone else's money on people they don't know.
Now imagine any other business that was this badly run
It would be
that
dead.
complains when you want to check the books and audit it and go through all the decisions that have been made and go through all the ledgers and
Yeah.
what did you do?
Well, the people receiving the money want to keep receiving the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly.
Yes. So, but, I mean, the reason I'm putting so much effort into this is that I think it is a very dire situation. It's not a, it's not optional, basically. So the way that the system gets exploited is by taking advantage of the poor communication between the various databases in the government. To give you an example of like what's happening, say, Treasury, which is improving rapidly. The main payments computer is called PAM, like payment accounts master database or something like that. But everyone calls it PAM. That's responsible for almost $5 trillion of payments a year, roughly $1 billion an hour. And when we came there, we're looking at this PAM, and it's like the payments have no. You could put a payment through with no payment categorization code, and no description on the payment, like basically untraceable blank checks. This is the kind of thing that if it was done as a public company, the company would be immediately delisted, and the executive team would be thrown in prison. But if we make a mistake, we'll reverse it quickly.
Right.
And, so
There's also this
Just-
interesting narrative that you shouldn't have access to this Social Security information, as if no one's had access to it before, as if the Biden administration in 2023 there was like 53 people, some of them were students, that had access to all this stuff.
yeah, as it is, there are tens of thousands of federal employees that have access to, already to the system. Anyone from DOGE has to go through the same vetting process that those federal employees went through. So it's not like some unvetted random situation. If, for example, there's a security clearance needed, the DOGE person has to have that same security clearance. So there's no reduction in security. But I mean, obviously the vast numbers of Social Security numbers have leaked onto the internet.
So is there a way to audit all this stuff and find out, oh, these people are actually just sending food to poor people. These people are actually just helping people with water in third world countries. There's a way to do that and keep funding those?
Yeah, I mean, we have continued to fund things that appear to be legitimate, even with the flimsiest. If there's even the flimsiest excuse, like I just say, like, send me a picture of the thing. Like, you could literally have AI generate the picture, but if you're not even willing to try to trick me, then we're like not going to send the money. Okay.
So what restrictions were put on? There was some something set aside, like medicine, and there's what was set aside that there wasn't going to be a freeze on?
Work for like Ebola prevention. I actually don't even know if this work is even effective. It may or may not be. Like it could be the kind of thing where you sort of fund Ebola prevention, but it turns out that actually you're funding a lab that develops new Ebola recipes or something.
Yeah.
And they claim it's Ebola prevention, but it's actually Ebola creation. So some of these things, I don't know. I mean, just. But it just seems like we shouldn't be sending taxpayer money to dubious enterprises overseas.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And why are we doing it? Like, what exactly is the reason? Is it because we want to make friends with these people so the Chinese don't take over, the Russians don't take over? Okay, how much of that is like a good thing? How much of that is smart to do? And how much is a grift? And without any sort of oversight, which has really been going on for so long, they've just had free run.
Yeah. Well, also we just have a real issue with the budget deficit. It's gigantic. So, like if all things being equal, if we didn't have a gigantic budget deficit where interest payments, the interest on the national debt exceeds the Defense Department budget, which is truly astounding. Which means so we're paying over $1 trillion of interest on the national debt. Then okay, we would have more room for wasting money, basically.
How many NGOs?
I think there's a total number of NGOs, probably millions, but in terms of large NGOs, tens of thousands. I mean, it's actually kind of a hack to the system where someone can get an NGO stood up for a fairly small amount of money. Like George Soros was really good at this. Like George Soros is like a system hacker. Like he figured out how to hack the system. He's a genius at arbitrage. I mean, these days he's pretty old, but a genius at arbitrage. So he figured out that you could leverage a small amount of money to create a nonprofit, then lobby the politicians to send a ton of money to that nonprofit, so you can take what might be, a $10 million donation to a nonprofit to create a nonprofit and leverage that into $1 billion NGO. A nonprofit is a weird word. It's just a non-governmental organization, and then the government continues to fund that every year, and it'll have a nice sounding name like the Institute for Peace or something like that. But really, it's a graft machine.
And what are their requirements with that money? What do they have to do?
Just really no requirements at all.
So they just get grants and the government just assumes that they're doing good work.
I think a lot of people in the government know that they're not doing good work, but it's a giant graft machine. I mean,
but surely
people online are like unpacking this,
right? It almost seems fake. Like when you're seeing how we were covering this article that said 55,000 Democrat NGOs were discovered that had been contributing to campaigns and moving things around and pushing propaganda, and they were all connected. And they found it through AI. That you have to go through steps and steps and steps to figure out where the money's coming from. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's all funneling down to this group, and this group does that. And it's a giant propaganda machine, a giant regime change machine.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was trying to get an answer right before the show. What it looks like is that most of the fraud is not coming from Social Security payments directly, but because they're marked as alive in the Social Security database, that they can get disability, unemployment, sort of fake medical payments, and other things because they're marked as alive in the Social Security database. Mm. So it looks like it's a bank. The fraud is a bank shot essentially. They bank shot into Social Security. They just do an "Are you alive?" check, and then get fraudulent payments from every other part of the government.
Oh,
yeah, and this exploits the fundamental weakness in the government is that the various government databases, they don't talk to each other. So they talk to each other very poorly in a very limited way. So the way that the system gets exploited is by taking advantage of the poor communication between the various databases in the government.
Last but not least, in his latest GRE appearance, Elon Musk even discussed the NSA, Epstein files, and even talked a bit about Trump's second term.
I think we should not put the public safety at risk.
No.
Because of some demented philosophy.
Somebody made a post today about it infiltrating the NSA. Did you see any of that?
That was crazy. Some gnarly stuff.
Yeah, crazy. What it started off as just like this sort of fringe thing, and people would meet up. Then it completely infiltrated the organization. Yeah, and they were spending all their time.
It was like 400 people or something, and some sex chat room with like some extremely demented stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I'll send it to you, Jamie, because it's so kooky. You what? This is the NSA. I thought the NSA was just all about like information and hardcore. You don't have to have fucking meetings constantly promoting this. You're not going to change someone's opinion by berating them over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, a work environment should be a professional environment where they're getting the job done that they're being paid to do. It should be.
Of course,
it's obviously not supposed to be sort of getting paid for bizarre sexcapades.
It's just so fascinating that the virus is so strong that it made it into the NSA.
Yes.
And you would think those are some hardcore.
And the CIA too. I believe
Yeah.
the CIA was in there too.
Yeah,
So,
they were in there too, which
Yeah.
is bananas. You would think same thing, like
Well,
hard-nosed, like tough people doing hard work.
Who can spy on you whenever they want
Yeah. Yeah.
and get revenge on you whenever they want.
Yeah. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
And, you know, they exist when the president leaves. They stay. People move around. You stay a part of the organization for your entire career. You get deeply entrenched in their system and how things work and who's back to rub and who's a bad guy, who's a good guy, who's on our side, who's not.
Yeah. It's scary, actually.
Yeah.
So
Was that what's taken so long with this Epstein files? This is such a fascinating time because with this setup, the way it is right now with Trump back in after all that happened to him and with you there and with RFK Jr. and Tulsi and Kash Patel, it's like this is a wild time to find out what's really going on. That's like never happened before. This is nothing like the first term.
no.
Like the first term, he had a bunch of neocons in the cabinet, and there's a bunch of shady people that he didn't know, and he had to appoint all these different people, and maybe he got some bad picks. Now he's had 4 years to stew on it.
Right.
And with you guys all going through this, we're getting an understanding of the government that we've literally never had before.
Yeah.
And you know, I know you saw the Jeff Bezos thing in the Washington Post. They're going to stop all the wacky editorials and limit that stuff to, I think it was wealth and personal freedom or something along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think there's kind of, I think it makes sense because he's just talking about the things, not the sort of, he's just talking about the opinions.
Opinion pieces.
The opinion pieces, yeah. So the regular journalism stays the same. So.
Well, it's a detriment to their business. I mean, you're seeing over and over again people that just they don't want to hear all this shit from these people anymore. It's like you're saying it's almost like you're caught in an outdated version of the virus, and everybody else already has the immunity to that virus. Like this is, you know, like you need a new mind virus. The one that you're pushing, it's like it doesn't work anymore. It's too crazy.
Yeah, it's the whole thing's very crazy. I mean, the media is incredibly partisan. I mean, they're not. Almost all the media is, left shifted.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird if you talk to somebody who gets all their information from like what I call legacy media. They're living in a different world.
Yeah.
Than if they say are listening to your podcast or getting news from X or just. It's kind of wild. Like
it is very wild.
Like you talked, it's like they're living in an alternate reality.
Oh, there's a lot of people that I talk to that I have to go, where did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about it for the highlight of what Elon Musk and Joe Rogan talked about. Leave a like, subscribe, and see you later, guys.